Welcome everyone to our webinar today. My name is Daniel Houston. I'll be your host today during the webinar. We appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy schedules to go through this. I'm excited about the program we have outlined today as well as the presenters. I think we have a lot of value to add here. Speaking about some ARM industry data myths that might be limiting your growth. Today we'll be covering a few things. As indicated by the invitation, we'll be going through namely 3 ARM industry data myths. Again, that might be limiting some potential growth there. We'll also be talking about some latest technology and solutions that help address these myths. And lastly, we'll be offering a data health analysis to those that stick around. We'll be going through that at the tail end of this webinar, and we'll be able to break down and give your agency a data health analysis, which I think has a lot of value to offer, definitely. Now I'd like to introduce our presenters. We have 2 presenters today, both of which have a lot of experience under their belt, Kurt Jennings and Jason Melton. I'll start with Kurt Jennings. Kurt is currently the Director of Operations for Health Services Asset Management, LLC, located in the greater Seattle, Washington area. HSAM support for revenue cycle ranges from early out, legacy rundown, and bad debt collection recoveries. Before HSAM, Kurt was president and CEO of Allied Credit Services Incorporated, also in Seattle, for nearly 20 years. Kurt considers himself a veteran of the collection industry and has been in the collection business for over 30 years. We certainly appreciate his experience and him being willing to join us today and add his viewpoint. Presenting alongside him will be Jason Melton. Jason is a senior partner with the Intelitech Group, which is a collections industry consulting firm located in Camas, Washington. He began his career as a collector and has spent over 18 years in the ARM industry, everything from IT and legal to consulting. In his current role at Intelitech, Jason leads a team of consultants that work with clients to help them develop and refine processes, resources, and technologies. We again appreciate both of them taking time out of their schedule to help enlighten us on some of these topics. And with that, I will turn the mic over to Jason Melton to introduce our first myth.
Awesome. Thanks, Daniel, and thanks for kicking us off. And thank you again to everyone attending today. Take some time out of your day to sit on the webinar. Our primary mission here at Intelitech is to apply analytics to help our clients attain clarity and overcome constraints. We work with hundreds of agencies across the nation to optimize effort, improve customer reach, avoid risk, and evaluate performance. What we have found in common with the clients that we work with in this area is that everyone has their own secret sauce in how to work the debt assigned to them. While this art of collecting is certainly important, our experience in working with our clients has shown that art alone is not enough to make you competitive in our industry today. There's no question you need good data and experience to make good decisions, but it's really about having the right data. And once you have all the facts, it's much easier to make informed decisions. Most people do research before they buy a car. We feel that you too need to do the same type of homework when collecting on debt. First, I just want to go through a brief story from the eyes of one of your collectors. Let's say your collector is working 2 accounts on their screen. They have Frank, and then they have Melanie. Frank and Melanie both visited a hospital or medical facility for a broken leg. Frank is 29 years old. He's single. He's unemployed. Melanie is 38 years old. She's married, and she's a full-time accountant. So let's think about how this might look to a collector who's sitting behind that screen. They're going to see Frank and they're going to see Melanie on their screen. And if this is the only information that they kind of have in front of them, I'm guessing that they're going to bank on working that account for Melanie harder than they're going to work that account for Frank. What data tells us is that Frank owns a home, he has 2 cars, he's a lottery winner, and he's been current and dependable in all of his obligations. Versus Melanie has no assets, and she's frequently delinquent in her payment schedules that she has had with creditors. My point in this story is really that collectors have such a limited amount of information and can't simply see the whole picture without the use and supplementation of data and information. That's why we feel, and we rely heavily on when working with clients, the propensity to pay score. A propensity to pay score is simply a score that's from 0 to 999, and 999 meaning this is a higher likelihood to collect account versus 0 being on the lower end. In our example with Frank and Melanie, Frank would likely fall on that higher end of the spectrum on the propensity to pay score, and Melanie would fall on the lower end. I want to note that the propensity to pay score is not a credit score. While it has some credit attributes built into it, it's really a recoverability score. So once the account lands into your organization, it's the likelihood that that consumer will pay something. That being said, propensity score is not necessarily the end-all be-all. We see Frank on the higher end of that propensity score, but let's say that Frank only owes a $30 copay that was left over after his visit. Certainly, an organization doesn't want to spend a ton of time working an account that they might only get less than $10 a fee from. So that's why we have developed and help our clients use segmentation and specifically metal scores. So in this particular slide, we're classifying an organization's inventory into 4 buckets, which we call metal scores: platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. What we show on our screen here is a 10 by 10 grid. We have 10 columns of balance cutoffs, and we have 10 rows of score cutoffs. Each one of the cells in the middle there, there's 100 cells because it's 10 by 10. Each one of those cells represents about 1% of the overall inventory for this particular organization. So when doing an analysis to design these metal algorithms, we're finding roughly 25% of the best yielding accounts are going to be classified as platinum accounts. The data in the middle here is the average yield per account collected. So we can see on the bottom right-hand corner there that the overall total average for this particular organization is $6.73 per account collected. The highest yielding platinum account in the bottom right there is $32.52. So think about that for a second. We've got an average yield of $6.93, but our highest yielding accounts are $32.52. It's a tremendous separation there. Versus on the other end of the spectrum, we have the 0 to $119.21 accounts, and the score of 0 to 110 yielding approximately 62 cents per account. There's a whole lot of difference in how you could work those accounts and how much effort you can really put in those type of accounts based on the fee that would be collected. I also want to draw your eyes kind of into the center of this particular chart. We see a balance range there of $210.61 to $273.32. Interestingly enough, in that balance range, which is only $63 separation between the high and the low end, we have 4 separate treatment strategies. We have platinum accounts, which yield $14.34, and then we have bronze accounts on the other end of the spectrum there that are yielding roughly 85 cents per account. So it's really important to use segmentation to be profitable. with the shrinking margins that everyone's experiencing these days, you simply can't afford to treat every account the same. And especially when you're looking at those bronze and those silver grade accounts, the fee that you're going to be collecting from those type of accounts are going to be relatively low. So utilization of minimum treatment strategies, minimum work efforts is where we kind of specialize in helping our clients work those accounts. Looking at this same analysis, but consolidating it into a cumulative view, we see our platinum accounts are 25.4% of our total number of accounts. They've paid us 58% of our dollars. When we incorporate gold with that, now we're at close to 50% of the accounts in the inventory in this analysis, 49.5% of the accounts, yielding 82.1% of the dollars. So think about that for a second. If you, in this particular analysis, if you work half of the accounts in an inventory, you're bringing in 82% of the dollars that were recovered in that same analysis. Very, very powerful. What this allows you really to do is increase capacity, do more with less, right? Bring on new business without adding more staff. In addition to that previous analysis, what we like to look at is the effort. So when we're talking about measuring work effort to return, it's important that we're able to capture the effort that's going into these accounts to make sure ultimately that our efforts are not misplaced. We see in this analysis here that on average, for this analysis, $57.89 is the average dollars collected per account there in the bottom left-hand corner, whereas the platinum accounts yield $127.51, bronze accounts are $9.91. Over on the right hand, four columns from the left is the amount of effort that's being expended. So measuring your effort against the return is going to show you where your efforts need to be placed, not only where they need to be placed, but also how valuable those accounts are. In our experience in working with clients, we're keenly aware that collections is both an art and a science. You may think that you're competitive, but how can you really be sure without performing some kind of an analysis? There's always room for improvement. Here now is Kurt Jennings, Director of Operations for Health Services Asset Management. Kurt has been a valued client of the IntelliTech Group for more than 5 years. He's going to speak for a few minutes about his experience in measuring work effort to return.
I have been a client of the IntelliTech Group for approximately 5 years here at Health Services Asset Management. And from my experiences, we look at the graphs, and I know that Jason and team are providing you with a lot of information. I'm here more to share my experience and the results that we've seen here at HCAM. As I said, we have been a client for approximately 5 years, and when we initially engaged with the IntelliTech Group, it was to get better, more accurate current demographic information. We were truly looking for the skip tracing side of increasing our business, but what we got in return was the true data and analytics, really driving our results. So as they did their initial data review of our inventory at that time, they were able to segment out our collection inventory to show exactly where these various metal scores were and really rank our overall data. They provided me with reports that outlined that the bottom third of our business at that time represented only 3% of our overall recovery. That was a very telling moment to me, to say the least, as we had experienced across our entire inventory essentially the same strategies. We were dialing the same accounts, giving the same work effort, same letters, same notices, again, across our entire inventory. So when they did their data analysis and scrubbed our data and showed me that, again, the bottom third of our business only represented 3% of our overall recoveries, it told me that we weren't maximizing our opportunities, nor were we really leveraging our staff to maximize the dollars based on the inventory that we had. We were, again, throwing darts at the dartboard, but weren't trying to hit the bullseye. We were just repeating our efforts, but really weren't maximizing the results.
All right. Thank you, Kurt, for sharing. This is going to lead us to our second myth, which is data-driven is only relevant for the big guys. My colleagues and I were recently sitting on an industry webinar. The webinar was about the importance of making data-driven decisions in today's low-margin landscape. It was a great session, no doubt, but it was pretty overwhelming to hear about how they suggest that someone should get started being data-driven. They threw out things like building a data warehouse and assembling a team of analysts, incorporating a business intelligence solution, mining the data and finding variables in the data that are predictive to payment, and using machine learning and things like multiple linear regression algorithms against the data to make the organization more data-driven. In our experience here working with clients, we wholeheartedly agree that all of that is hugely beneficial to have. But that being said, it doesn't have to be that difficult nor that expensive. In fact, we've been helping organizations of all sizes with this for more than a decade. Having such a solution like this in place and being data-driven is going to really allow you to better differentiate yourself, serve your clients, and ultimately compete with the big guys. So Kurt, in our industry over time, you've no doubt seen significant shifts in technology, data, and client expectations. In today's landscape with such tight margins, how does one really remain competitive?
Thanks, Jason. That's a great question. So prior to us engaging with IntelliTech Group, we did have a separate skip tracing resource that we utilized. Our results coming out of that particular vendor were problematic, to say the least. We found that the information that was being provided was aged, was dated, was irrelevant. Turned out that they hadn't resided at that particular phone number, that particular address for a extended length of time, to say the least. And out of our staff, I truly believe that we experienced more frustration as opposed to positive remarks and excitement from the staff. We had spent what I would call a reasonable dollar value to really engage with this data information, this organization, only to get aged information. So when we initially reached out to the IntelliTech Group, we were looking to truly enhance our ROI and gain some cost efficiencies. So by going through the results, and again, we're talking about data. We are looking at our client base, our consumer base, our debtors, whichever term you utilize in your organization, and trying to draw from that information the best possible results for our clients. We're trying to, of course, maximize our recoveries and our dollars and our profits while driving down our operational expenses. So when we initially engaged with IntelliTech Group, we were looking to maximize our recoveries, of course, but we needed good, accurate, up-to-date information. Once we put the automation in place, we take on our assignments, we run it through the solution and get back updated address, updated status from a bankruptcy to a deceased to a litigious consumer. Then we can insert that information into our current software system and maximize our recovery results. We can build our call campaigns accordingly. We can put our collectors in a position to truly maximize recoveries because they're calling the best known number available. Then they can drop down to the second best number known to be associated with the consumer. They are maximizing their time spent on the phones by calling right party contacts. They treat it like it's their own business, while again, they are maximizing their own revenue and recovery that they can put in their pocket in the form of commission or incentive or whatever term you use within your organization. But while they're achieving their own operational excellence on their phone and their book of business, they're also improving the bottom line for the agency and in turn our clients. I can't speak enough to just the retention and the morale on the floor by the collection staff by giving them the ability to make reasonable choices for next steps, and that we can customize our call campaigns, best practices, and best contacts on a daily basis. We slice and dice our call campaigns by client, by propensity, by region, by payment history. Again, we have taken the automation to a whole new level by really utilizing the data and drilling it down to maximize our results, which again, this day and age, that's the driving force to each and every one of us to give us that competitive edge over our competitors and to maximize our client results. And again, operational expenses and net profit.
So the next thing I want to do is just kind of walk us through a scoring application and how we might be able to utilize some of this really cool data that we're collecting and mining for, and ultimately helping you to use more effectively in your organization. So we've got a big glob of data on the screen here. Sorry if the font is too small to read. We can get you a handout following the session so you can see it a little bit closer. This particular analysis, let's go ahead to the yield per highlight and the metal and the age highlight. Go ahead and advance. There we go. This particular analysis is basically taking a sample subscribers inventory and classifying it into a combination of score, utilization of metal, and age from date of placement. So I think it's no surprise to anyone that's attending today's call that that newer accounts liquidate better than older accounts. You have access to that information. What you don't have access to, though, is the metal score, and the metal score is really driving, like we showed previously, a combination of propensity to pay and value and opportunity that it represents to your organization. So when we look at this analysis, we see on the top row there we have platinum accounts that are aged 0 to 30 days from date of assignment. The yield per account collected there is $449. The next row, we have platinum accounts that are aged out a little bit further. We got an additional 30 days in there. So between the top two rows, we have platinum accounts 0 to 60 days. And then we introduce gold accounts 0 to 30 days in the next row down. So our recommendations for working with clients is to help them utilize score and help them utilize data more effectively. We don't bill ourselves as a scoring and a data provider. We bill ourselves as a company that provides you score and data, but we help you utilize that score and that data more effectively. We do this from many years of experience in working with clients in the ARM industry. One other thing that we're going to look at in this particular analysis, we have a column that is effort. That column is measuring the amount of effort that's going into that particular combination of metal and age category. So in this case, our platinum accounts age 31 to 60 days. We put 6.3% of our effort into those accounts, and that has yielded us 11.3% of our collection dollars. We have a positive margin of 5%. We can actually put more effort into that category, and we wouldn't be sacrificing anything. Versus, we see silver accounts here. These are aged 0 to 30 days, so these are brand new accounts, silver. We're putting 11.3% of our effort into those accounts, and they're only yielding us 5.2% of the overall dollars. When we do the margin calculation there, we've got a negative 6.1% margin on working those accounts. We're working those too heavily. So how do we fix that? Well, through our years of working with clients, we've developed a strategy where we utilize analyses like this to classify the accounts into different priority buckets. we can see here we've classified them as A, B, C, D, and E. Our A group of accounts, when we look at how many accounts out of our inventory does this represent, the fourth column from the right, the rolling column there, that is showing us a cumulative percentage of accounts that have been placed to us in that particular grouping. So in this case, 5.9% of our accounts are in the platinum accounts, 0 to 90 days old. We've got 3 rows of platinum accounts there. And we have 1 row of gold accounts, 0 to 30 days old. So cumulatively, that grouping of accounts in the A category represents 5.9% of our inventory. When we look at the collection rolling percentage, which is the 6th column from the left, this is doing a cumulative rolling of our collection dollars. We see that those 5.9% of our accounts are bringing in 49.2% of our dollars. So if we were just to focus only on those 6% of accounts, let's call it 6%, we would still be bringing in close to 50% of our dollars. How amazing is that? When we expand to call category B and C and do that same exercise, we're now up to 22% of our accounts that represent 76.8% of our dollars. So this is just an example, kind of a strategy that we work with, and we've done this for Mr. Jennings, to drive work effort and to drive dialer effort so that you're calling the right accounts at the right time, and you're exhausting your efforts on those accounts once they age out, staggering work efforts. So you might work your A priority accounts much more frequently than you do your B, and B more frequently than you do your C, and so on. D and E, maybe those are your accounts that you do auto dials or blasts or whatever. But these are the kind of strategies that we would work with organizations to set up by utilization of the metal and the aging. Following that analysis, what we like to look at, or we help our clients to look at in a very clean report, this is what we call our KPI report, is really making sure that those effort, the trends in their effort are really in line with what they should be based on the metal category. So, and looking at this analysis here, we can see that platinum accounts are yielding 70% of the dollars in the last 6 months. Gold accounts 14, silver 10, bronze 5, and we can see where the effort has been distributed into those accounts, and when we should be alerted that our effort is too high, like in this example, in the bronze category. So key performance indicators such as this can really help us focus on where we need to make some shifts. With that, we're going to move on to myth number 3. Myth number 3 is data-driven is just another industry trend. We don't believe this at all. That's why that's why we're calling it a myth. It's, data is growing. It's not shrinking in significance to our industry today. We feel it's very important for you to use your historical information to drive better business decisions. According to a recent survey, only 1/3 of enterprises currently use information to identify new business opportunities and predict future trends and behavior. But most of the remaining 2/3 of businesses plan to do so in the future. I just want to highlight that because there are best-in-class companies out there that are using this approach today, and thus are at a strategic advantage from organizations that are not. We have some additional statistics up on the screen here. 74% of companies with advanced data strategies say they have a better market position than competitors. Data is revolutionizing our industry. It's going to drive better performance, increase profitability, stronger client relationships. If you're not using data and presenting your clients with data, I can assure you that there's companies out there that are. We work with them every day. Kurt, you've been using analytics for nearly half a decade. Do you feel that your organization is more competitive because of it?
That, Jason's an understatement. I, to this day, scratch my head on how we did it beforehand, truth be told. This day and age, as we all know, it's very competitive. The margins are shrinking, to say the least. As an industry, we need to be more diligent in trying to find cost-effective, efficient ways to operate. Our clients aren't giving us more money because our margins are shrinking. We have to protect ourselves and insulate ourselves on a daily basis from a compliance perspective and everything else in the industry. I said it earlier that, through the initial data analysis that was provided to our company from the IntelliTech group, they showed me firsthand that, as I said, our bottom third of our inventory only represented 3% of our business. What I didn't share with you that I should have, and I'll share with you now, we saw an 18% lift in our recoveries in the first year by implementing the data solution and the automation into our system. We truly refined our processes internally. The slides that Jason and team shared with you earlier, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of numbers. It brings a smile to my face to see it because our operation relies so heavily on those outputs, where you can see which clients are giving you, the various assignments by volumes and in comparison, and you can follow that trending information and who your top performers are from a client base, from a collector base. You really do get the opportunity to assess your data and maximize your results and your recoveries. We think that from a compliance perspective, the information that's provided to us is best in class, and that we can, as Jason alluded to, provide that information back to our client from the litigious consumer portion, the bankruptcy, the deceased. We can take the data and the data results and share that with our clients so they know that we really are mining every single data element that they are providing us is being utilized and reviewed and looked at to make certain that we are, again, maximizing our recoveries, trying to minimize our operational expenses, and really refine our call campaigns to give our staff the best opportunity to maximize the recoveries, not only for themselves, but for the clients and customers that we serve, of course. So I am very passionate about our relationship with IntelliTech Group. Truly, I could go on forever based on, again, just the mere facts of taking the information that we already have and drilling it down and putting it in the format and in a report and into our call campaigns and our daily work efforts that are obtainable, that are accurate, that are positive, and that are just absolutely maximizing our results and giving us that competitive advantage.
Thanks, Kurt. On this slide, I just want to highlight a sample report, sample analysis that a number of the companies we work with utilize in different capacities. It's a propensity score performance sample, basically. What this is showing is a percentage of payers by that propensity to pay score. So I showed you a slide earlier with Frank and Melanie, who both have been to the hospital for a broken arm. This is a real world example of that kind of data. So again, we have a score 0 to 999. It's going to say, hey, here's how the account should rank order by propensity to pay. What this allows, this kind of analysis will allow you to do is show your client, or even just look at your own clients and how they stack up to each other. So this analysis here will show you the top clients that are sending you those top tier propensity to pay scores. But I work with a number of subscribers who utilize this information to send back to their client. So they're actually going to show their client how do their accounts distribute on this propensity to pay score. It's no mystery to their clients that they're working these accounts by a score, and they actually feel like it's a valuable addition to provide this kind of data to their clients because it really differentiates them as a company against their competitors. Also, we've got a message code summary sample here. So Kurt's Kurt talked about the data that's coming back. So we've talked a lot about scores already, but there's a whole slew of data in the data enrichment piece that comes back. And we specialize in helping companies work with that information because it's a bit like drinking from a fire hose. You've got a lot of data coming back to you. It's dropped at your doorstep, and what do you do with it? That's the case that a lot of agencies are in today when they do business with a data vendor, is that data gets dropped at their doorstep, and they're like, good luck, hey, you're on your own. But our differentiation is we understand the data very well, and we're gonna help you utilize it and utilize it effectively. This is an example of a report that can be used to drive your own strategy and workflow based on the accounts, where they're coming in, where they're falling. It's the input information. It's measured against the input information that was provided through the scrub and the results of that information. Utilizing the information, the data is really valuable to increase your right party contacts. We see, in this case, we have a message code of AA06 here, about 7 rows down from the top, address unit number missing. That's an example here where the input information didn't contain an apartment or a unit number, and it should have, right? So you got John Doe at 123 Main Street, but you are missing that he's at apartment 5D. So this information is going to signal, hey, I've got an opportunity here, I can correct this, and then that data will be returned in addition to it. We'll help companies set up their workflow or guide them through their workflow on how to take advantage of this kind of information. Pointed out address unit number missing. Some other examples, prison addresses, temporary addresses like hotels and hospitals, campgrounds, known fraudulent addresses. Those are examples where if the data that's coming back shows you that, hey, this is one of these scenarios where the input information that I sent through the scrub is deemed to be bad, let's see if there's better information that exists as a result of the scrub. I don't have it on here, but there is a message code that indicates if the best address is different or the same as the input information. So in these scenarios, you got a prison address message code, you have another message code that says our best address is different. In those cases, our recommendation would be to supplement the or replace the prison address with the best address coming through the scrub. Cell phone identification is another example of a message code. Helps companies be TCPA compliant, make sure that if what you're sending as a home phone you think is a landline and we're saying is a cell phone, let's get those out of there. Let's move those somewhere else so that you know actually what you're calling. And then measuring all of it. I can't stress this enough that not only is it important to make changes to improve your efficiencies, but then to measure those changes to make sure that those changes are not hurting you. In this case, our KPI report, we're looking at assignment listing trends. So are your assignments last month above or below your 6-month average? How does that look from a 6-month standpoint? Who are the clients? How many clients are assigning you debt to collect? And then payment trends. Has something changed in your strategy where you're now receiving less payments and assignments are holding steady? Is there a difference in paper? So this is meant to be a really high-level snapshot for executives, operations folks, to make sure that the strategies that are being changed are actually in line with the performance. And it's from a data enrichment and ROI perspective. Can you measure when you do get new addresses and new phone numbers that you're doing something with those and those changes are valuable? In this case, we're measuring when a phone gets updated. In this particular example, it got updated close to 1,600 times, 1,599 times, and an account got a new phone update from the scrub. The resulting collections on those accounts after that point in time was $48,338. So obviously there's a lot to measure here. It's important to know what the data is providing you. It's important that it's easy to read. It's useful for not only you, but your clients. If you can provide this type of a report to your client that shows them exactly where their effort has been placed, where their assignments, their collections, how many changes in the data that you're having to make about their for their data quality, just going to set you aside as a differentiator. We work with clients all the time that they're always looking for something to differentiate themselves from the competition. This is one of those reports. We can run that report for an individual client or a group of clients. In summary, just want to highlight that Intelitech, we help companies in the ARM space with data, with account segmentation, helping you to apply it through your workflow and measuring those results. What that's going to provide is ultimately an increase in lift by the use of segmentation. It's going to decrease your risk by removing accounts that shouldn't be worked, bankruptcy, deceased, litigious, fraudulent type of accounts. It's going to help you reach parties quicker and faster by address and phone supplementation. You're going to work the right accounts by the use of segmentation, and you're going to be able to measure your work effort to return. You're going to improve the way in which information is presented to you and to your clients with business intelligence. You're going to make information easier to find by leveraging standard reports. And you're going to increase the speed at which information is made available to your collectors through workflow automation. So Daniel, that concludes our talking points today. I think we can field some questions if we still have time.
Great, thank you, Jason, and thank you, Kurt, as well. We certainly appreciate your perspective and your wisdom there. So we appreciate both of you guys. As a reminder, we will be taking a few questions. As questions have came to mind, feel free. I do have a few that have come in, but feel free to add additional questions that might have come to mind as we go through this portion. Additionally, you'll see some contact information. Both Jason and Kurt are open to people reaching out. Feel free to connect with them on LinkedIn or ask questions that you may have. So this question, I'd be curious to get both of your perspectives, both from Kurt and Jason. It's talking about how does the integration work? That's the question. I'd be curious from your standpoint, Jason, as because obviously yours and Kurt's are at different ends of the implementation or integration, and so I'd be curious to hear both of your perspectives on that.
Yeah, I can start with that. So we have a very mature, robust integration with a number of collection platforms out on the market today. Ontario Systems is a very close partner of ours. We have integrations into their Artiva HC environment, their fax environment, the collector system, RPCS. So there's, I could name more too, but if you're on an Ontario platform, likely there's already an integration built for capturing and extracting and digesting data and scores and information to and from your system. We also have an integration with Interpros, their ACE platform, but it really doesn't matter because we can do business with anyone regardless of platform that they're on. Some are a bit more turnkey than others based on if it's a familiar platform or not to us, but we have file specs and integrations and APIs that allow us to work and provide the value to organizations regardless of platform that they're on.
And from our perspective, from an operations side and the client perspective, we went through, as I said, the initial courting process, for lack of a better term, and then we elected to move forward. And the Intelitech group had their project managers that reached out to our project managers, put an implementation plan together, very smooth, very seamless. You know, our organization as well as our entire industry are very security focused and, you know, driven around security and data integrity. So we were placed at ease as it was a very simple implementation process. I'll say a lot of hand holding, for lack of a better term, just to make certain we hit on all cylinders from a compliance perspective and, again, security perspective. Very simple integration and tremendous automation once we were done.
Yeah, I mean, and just to expand a little bit, just to boil down the integration, it's a matter of getting the right fields and the right data out of the system. Getting it to us, we will supplement that file with additional information and ultimately help you digest that information back into your system by the use of best practices and recommended approaches.
Interesting. Thank you both. Another question that came in, and I'll send this one to you, Jason, and then if Kurt, if you want to add anything, you certainly can. But it's about the scoring. That scoring was brought up in a number of different areas throughout the presentation. And how was that propensity score calculated? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I can. There's really kind of four main drivers for that propensity to pay score. There's thousands of elements that are built into it, but there's four kind of key drivers. The first driver is wealth characteristics. So where does that consumer live? How what kind of assets do they own? Socioeconomic type of information about that consumer and their wealth makeup. The second contributing factor is verifiability or validation. So does your information or your client's information match what big data shows? So you show John Doe at 123 Main Street. Big data shows them also at 123 Main Street. You know, things have lined up, things match. That makes the account more collectible. But if you have different information or you're trying to collect on an old address, that can certainly bring down the scoring. The third characteristic would be contactability. How contactable is that consumer? So how many and then what was the quantity of addresses and phones found for that particular consumer? And then the fourth, which might be the most powerful of all, is historical information about how you have collected on that individual in the past. That information, such as have they made payments? Have you had to cancel the accounts in the past? Are they on a payment plan? Have they been on a payment plan? All of that can really contribute to those other variables to really paint a picture and develop where does this individual fall from a collectability standpoint.
In one of our collection strategies, we utilize, shall we say, credit information from the big three, again, to determine next steps. And I will say that the propensity and the information that we're reviewing on the consumers align. So again, I don't have privy information to what's going on in the background, but I would, from a review perspective, it aligns with the other scoring mechanisms that we use within the industry. I hope that helps.
It does. Kurt, you've, sorry, I'm throwing you a curveball here, but you've been asked about presumptive charity by your clients. Can you maybe expand on the importance of presumptive charity? I just want to highlight that is a service that we do offer, and it's, you know, with 501R right now, I know it's a very valuable service, and we're getting a lot of questions about it, but maybe you can talk a little bit about what you're seeing.
Most certainly. Again, in the healthcare space, the federal poverty line, FPL, charity care, financial assistance, whatever term your clients may use, does determine and drive next steps for a lot of their decisions front end. Some clients, of course, by having that information, are determining what their next steps in their strategy. We try and utilize it in an education opportunity to our clients so that they are focused on the front end and trying to identify and essentially capture those opportunities before transitioning to bad debt, which in turn, of course, minimizes some of our expense and overhead costs. If they can capture and identify that from the front end, then we don't have to go through the data transmission, statementing, work effort, and everything else. Once we do get the scoring mechanism in place, we can verify with our client what those particular efforts have been and aid them in determining next steps from a uncollectible or an exhaust strategy or a secondary placement strategy. So we really do try and differentiate ourselves by pushing some of that information back to our clients so they can determine next steps. I think it's a very eye-opening experience for them that we look at it, at that level. We're not just focusing on the propensity and the higher scores. We can focus on the lower score propensity in the FBL to try and help them with their own operations.
Sure, thanks. We do have one last question that has come in. This will be the concluding question. All others we can we'll get back to you as soon as we can with those. And this, I would assume, would be to Jason as well. It's, does Intelitech utilize historical data from all customers, and is it shared across all customers as an element of the historical data piece of the score?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are obviously data is protected, and so we cannot share a company A information with company B. So there is a limitation and a line that we have to draw there as far as sharing information between our subscribers. That being said, the fact that the consumer information that a single organization has had to collect against that consumer has proven to be just as valuable. So if you've had John Doe in your system multiple times, understanding that performance of John Doe is very key. But to answer the question, no, it's not shared between organizations.
Great. Thanks, Jason, and thanks, Kurt, again for answering those questions, and thanks for everyone who's have submitted questions. Again, we'll be sending out this slideshow in the next few days. It will also have that contact information for Kurt and Jason if you weren't able to get it today. We are coming up to the top of the hour, and we know you all have busy schedules, so we want to conclude with what we talked about at the beginning. We do offer a data health analysis, and how it will take place is we'll send you a quick 10-question quiz about your data health. We'll then supply you with a data health score that will also have an analysis of your strengths and weaknesses with recommendations. Going back to Jason Melton's role at Intelitech, he kind of runs this team, and him and his team can look through this. Lastly, we will be, the Intelitech group will be at the ACA conference next week in Nashville. Feel free to stop by and meet us. We'd love to meet you, introduce us, talk to us about the webinar, talk to us about some of your other things that might limit your growth as a company, and gain another perspective. Our booth number there will be booth number 424. So with that, we appreciate you guys coming today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.